You okay?
I literally haven't changed my outfit in like 2 days.
I'm sick of it!
I just can't get it together today. Not okay. All of us have problems.
Hey, welcome back to It's Okay, the podcast. Hello, you guys. Welcome into bonus episodes. These are going to be bonus episodes, I think. They're not really just headlining episodes. They're really just bonuses because it's really just stuff that I'm interested in. It's not like I want to platform it throughout the podcast because, I don't know, it's not like the world or like everyone is interested in these type of topics, and I totally get it. A lot of people want to just listen to, whatever, and I get it. But these things are interesting to me, and I want to hop on the mic and just talk about it because it's interesting. It's interesting. I love learning about history, America's history, Black history, the history of the Holocaust, the history of the Middle East, and just the history of the world. It's all very, very interesting to me. I really, really like it. And so this is like a prerequisite episode into that. So all of this stuff that we're covering, I mean, it is numerous amounts of facts. You have to check YouTube, ChatGPT, Grok. You have to look up articles and watch documentaries and find books and audible books about historians who have discussed all of this, and just really, really check your facts, quite literally. But this episode is inspired by Juneteenth, and as well as the celebration of America for 250 years. This great nation. I mentioned in the episode Another Week in America. That episode, definitely go back and listen to it. It's fun. It's a fun episode. But we, discussed that we are coming up on that, and Juneteenth is before July 4th, Independence Day, and these things are two separate celebrations, but they're all interconnected in like this beautiful, huge way, right? And it's like, okay, why was Juneteenth a thing? And you kind of have to go back a little bit to find out why Juneteenth even is a thing, and a whole host of other things. But finding all of this stuff out, I thought it would be cool to, dive into Juneteenth and like that time period of like 1865 and like kind of go back and then like work our way up. And then we're going to even go even further back from 1776 and before, because it's just very interesting how we as Blacks even got here and what that looked like for us, and how we ended up through the progression of going into 1865 and all of those great things, right? But with 1865 and with 1776 and the celebration of July 4th coming up, I thought it would be fitting to kind of discuss these great things. In 1776, right, we have America who wants to part ways from the British Empire that is trying to control them, their taxes. They're telling them that they can't make goods. You can't produce things. You can't have different ideas. You can do nothing but work. Everyone. And everyone's like, no, that's not a great life to live. Yada, 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 blase fair. And they're actually controlling them as they're in this body of land that we now call America. Like, they're all across the freaking Atlantic and they're controlling these people. And mindful, like, they didn't have phones, telegrams, different things like that. A letter that you sent to someone quite literally could make it to them a year later. That's how unstable their communication was. Terrible. But these are the things that they were experiencing and trying to flee from, right? So before 1776, I thought it was very interesting because I don't necessarily in this episode want to talk about 1776. It's more about Juneteenth and what that all means for the community. So even before 1776 and the Declaration of Independence from the British, there was a progression stage of that time period, which in another bonus episode we're going to fully dive into. I will fully dive into. But in the year before 1776, you had, the different colonies. They were all starting to form their colonies and different things like that. You had Virginia, New Jersey, those in the north creating their colonies. And they were trying to get everyone on board with seceding and becoming independent from the British. And they knew that they were going to have to fight. They were going to have to fight for their freedom from these people and become their own country, pretty much. And so at this time in Virginia was the pretty much, you could say, start, I guess, to the birth of America in a sense. And again, we'll get into the history of all of that in another bonus episode. But even the hearing of slaves being first brought to Virginia, that was the first place that they ever brought slaves. But blacks and African Americans, or I guess we weren't considered blacks back then, we were considered African Americans, and this is way before 1776, had been traveling to America and actually traded and congregated with the Native Americans. They also bred with the Native Americans. So, you have Africans and Native Americans having children together and different things like that. That's been a thing. So it wasn't like Africans hadn't come to America before. They definitely had traveled here so much. But that's a different bonus episode. But the first slaves were Virginia. You hear about that in the, is it 1619 project? Yeah, that's when, I guess, during that time period, the first slaves are brought in and different things like that. Virginia. So that, but yeah, Virginia is pretty much the powerhouse, the epicenter of the colonies. And so the governor at the time, said and issued out, a letter, a statement that they were going to hereby declare all indented servants, Negroes, free that are able and willing to bear arms. So slaves predominantly in the South were trying to flee to the North in order to be free, fight this war amongst the Union troops and declare their independence from the British and be free as well. Now, of course, when they got there, they fought in the war. They built trenches and handled, weaponry and did kind of like manual labor and different things like that. Even women and children fled as well, just to be free. And whenever the statement was issued out, they didn't expect women and children to come. Really just was a statement to men, but slaves were trying to be free. And so the women and children were like nurses and like cooks and like watching children and different things like that. But that was, I thought, very interesting to mention. that there were calls for slaves to be free in order to fight this war. And this is before the Civil War, before, the introduction of the abolishment of slavery was ever even mentioned. But these were debates and conversations that the country was having, like abolishing slavery. This isn't right. Like, this is what we need to do. This is, different things like that. And I thought it was interesting to note. But after the American Revolution and, America won against the Brits and finally became their own nation. And then, 1776 declared their independence and different things like that. And even after that, the slaves that came to fight the war in order to be free, some of them were sent back to their slave masters. Some of them decided to go to other parts and migrate. I saw that some went to Canada, some even went to back to the Caribbean and different things like that. And some were just free, pretty much. But slavery was still going on even after this. And, so they have decided to become their own country. And by this time, we've got a whole body of government that has officiated itself with the body of Congress and the Senate and the representatives. And you have pretty much America as these colonies, and they're starting to become states of America, becoming a part of the Union. And very interestingly, you hear about the North and the South. And the North was against slavery, did not have slaves, did not have anything like that. And then you had the South that was very much had slaves, practiced slavery, and wanted to keep that going, pretty much. And so the government at the time considered itself balanced, right? There wasn't any parties. There wasn't a Democratic Party. There wasn't a Republican Party. That wasn't a thing quite just yet. It was pretty much for slavery, against slavery. That's how they separated themselves. And the North was against it and had its own states within itself. Then you had the South that was for slavery, and they all had their different states that were for slavery. And there were 11 that were free states, no slavery, and there were 11 states that were for slavery. And so they are growing. The states are growing, people are creating territory and, creating this state. And Missouri is now going to be a state. Now Texas is going to be a state. There was wars all over that. I'm going to get all into that, to the bonus episodes where we truly go in depth. But yeah, this is now where the Civil War is being introduced. And this is described as the most bloodiest war that was ever fought on American soil, even bloodier than the American Revolution for our independence, where we declared and won our independence in 1776. But the Civil War is starting to come into play because the North and the South are fighting each other over the idea of slavery. But not only are they fighting each other over the idea of slavery, they're fighting each other over the idea that the federal government cannot tell states what to do. So if we want to have slaves, the federal government cannot tell us that we cannot do that. And now this is something that I thought was very interesting as well, is that the North did not have slaves because they were pretty much industrialized and were using machinery in order to do manual labor. Like, they didn't need people to pick this or to do the manual things. Like, they were creating machinery in order to do this. The cotton gin we learned in school, like, was a machine in order to collect cotton, clean cotton, and different things like that. You didn't need people to do that. And the North is like, you guys don't need slaves. We have completely like industrialized. We don't need slaves. Like, you guys don't need slaves. This is the kicker. The South was, of course, using slavery as free labor. The slaves were not getting paid anything. They were, given food and like a place to sleep. And, we can talk about all the conditions in a bonus episode, but that was the deal for the slaves. Crappy, terrible, horrible, no good, evil. Yes. And they were, of course, keeping all the proceeds. The slave owners, the beneficiaries, like the government, those that oversaw the states, the governors of those states, the representatives of those states, were keeping the proceeds for themselves as well, enriching themselves and enriching the land, and nothing was so it was a good deal for them. They're like, no, we're not gonna not have slaves. Like, y'all are tripping. And so this is where this fight is just keep going, and they're fighting about this in the government at the highest level, right? It's the same thing that we have now, where you have a senator and a representative from your state that goes federally and locally and fights on your behalf for what you want. The South wasn't doing that, obviously. The South was representing their needs, their interests, right? They're going to locally and for the government saying like, no, we need to keep slaves. And it's just a whole terrible predicament. But again, this is like a, federal versus state type of fight in a way. But again, like the North had representatives and senators as well fighting on the behalf of the abolishment of slavery. And there were a lot of famous like abolitionists and different things like that. Abolitionist is, people who are trying to abolish slavery. It was a whole movement. We love it. And like I said before, there were no political parties and different things like that. Now the southern states did consider themselves, the Confederate states, the Democratic states. And in order to oppose this, the North had to create a strong political party behind themselves. And that became the Republican Party. Now, this is something that a lot of people kind of forget, I think, that the Democratic Party, you hear the Democratic Party, we're for everyone. We're this, we're that. And we fight for this and we fight for that. And laissez-faire and bloat for blue no matter who. These dumb things, when the Democratic Party was the party of slavery and the Republican Party was a party that was in favor of fighting against slavery and created this party to fight these people against slavery. And I mean, this probably won't be a bonus episode. We're probably gonna definitely make it a highlight of how like corrupted our government is and how brainwashing they are. I've been reading Helter Skelter and the Manson murders and the CIA involvement behind it, and how just cruel the government is against its citizens, with quite literally brainwashing through all types of things. They didn't have social media back then, so they used to do it with speech, with articles and drawings and different things like that. Now they do it with social media and pay this person to say this and blase-faire. But yeah, it kind of is weird how you switch it, and it's like the Republican Party is the racist party and the Democratic Party isn't. And it's like, how did that switch? I don't think it didn't switch, but it's fine. And now, you have your presidents that get introduced, and we'll go over the presidents before Abraham Lincoln and their involvement in slavery. But Abraham Lincoln comes along, right? He is a representative. He comes along, and he is inducted into the Republican Party. And it's kind of famous that we don't even know this as well. Abraham Lincoln didn't necessarily try to end slavery. That actually wasn't his goal. His goal was to keep the North and the South together. He didn't want them to be two different countries, pretty much. He wanted all of the colonies and places and territories that were trying to become states to be a part of the union, one union. We don't need to be separated into different countries and provinces and different things like that. No, we need to be one. And he was like, I will even let you keep your slaves if you just let us be one country. And the South was still like, nah. And so he was like, okay, we got to get rid of the whole thing. It was very interesting to learn that that wasn't even necessarily his goal. So to think on if the South would have taken that deal, oh, we get to keep our slaves, but you just want us to be a part of the Union. Okay, fine. You could say the Democratic Party was very stupid. They should have took the deal, but I'm glad they didn't, because who knows what the country would be like now. Anyway, I just think that that's, something. And as Abraham Lincoln is becoming president, and they're having these debates amongst the North and the South, and the North is like, no, and the South is like, yes. You have the case of the famous slave Dred Scott. We also learned about him in school. We'll go into depth about that in a different episode. But him and his wife were trying to, become free from their owners. And the owners as well, one of them died, gave the slaves to his wife, and then they were trying to, get free, and the wife was like, no. So they're trying to appeal and have, the courts step in, suing and trying to gain their freedom. And they went through several different trials, and they were continuously rejected. But yeah, long story short, appeal to the Supreme Court for, their freedom. And a very famous, still to this day, figure in history, judge, Chief Justice Roger Taney, however you say it, Taney, famously said that people of African descent were not included, or not intended to be included, in the word citizens within the Constitution. And this was, the judge gives a statement after their ruling, and this is pretty much why he said, no, I'm not going to give you your freedom. Racist, we know. Now, this case, of course, sparked so much outrage against the North. They're watching this case, they're listening to this case, they're like, oh my gosh, this is absolutely wrong. Absolutely wrong. Now, once again, like I said, President Abraham Lincoln elected into presidency, the South is just like, we won't have this. And they eventually start to try to secede from the Union. They don't want to be a part of non-slavery. They want to own slaves. You guys want to not have them, so we're not going to be a part of anything that you have going on. We're going to elect our own president. And that's exactly what they did. Each state that was in the South started to secede, write, their secession letters and claim their independence from the Union. And they, formed the Confederate States. And they tried to elect a president, and Abraham Lincoln didn't recognize it as legitimate. He was like, absolutely not. We not finna have this. And thus, you then have the Civil War that is brought about, and it was bloody. The North won. The South surrendered. There wasn't like an overkilling or anything. I mean, there definitely was. There was hundreds of thousands of people that died. 80,000 slaves died during the Civil War fighting for their freedoms. And it was a very notable time in history, one that we must be very, very, very grateful for. That's for sure. And I think people forget that it was, largely whites that fought to end the slavery, the northern whites who killed their own in order to free slaves. Even though the president, that wasn't his intent, but he was like, we're going there now, which is crazy, which is absolutely crazy. And as the South surrendered, the Emancipation Proclamation on January 1st, 1863 is signed by Abraham Lincoln, freeing all slaves in the Confederate States, thus for ending slavery. But not just that easy. So, of course, the Union troops had to go around, let everyone know. They issued out these pamphlets. There are speculations that they hung them in churches and different things like that. But you had a general of the Union troops, Gordon Granger, who went to Galveston, Texas. This is the birthplace of Juneteenth, pretty much. Went to Galveston, Texas, and this is the last place where slavery was still being taken place, even 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863. So 2 years after the signing that slaves were free, slavery was still going on, and it was going on in Galveston, Texas still. And even then, they came and told the slaves that they were free. Some slaves still stayed, but they worked for actual financial gain for their previous owners, now employers. Some left Texas altogether. But that is the birth of Juneteenth in Galveston, Texas. Actually, the slaves the next year in 1866 celebrated on that year and called it Jubilee Day. So they didn't originally call it Juneteenth. They called it, Jubilee Day. And Juneteenth was then signed into law as a federal holiday in 2021 by Joe Biden. And thus far, we have Juneteenth as a federal holiday. Now, this federal holiday is, I think it's actually an important day. It definitely is. If you aren't in support of it, it's like, you're racist. I'm just joking. No, you're not. But like, yeah, it's, I did see some jokes like it's a, a sham holiday, like da da da. Like, no, that's actually that's very serious when you think about it. 1863, all slaves are supposed to be free. From that day, like, there should have been no slaves. But 2 years after that, you still had people who were enslaved, and that should not have been the case. But at the same time, they're saying like they had to go around and tell people that they won the war, and that by them winning the war, thus for slavery is no longer free. When we think of wars, like, yes, all of these people died, but like, you had people who fled the war. They didn't want to be a part of it. And a lot of people fled to Texas, which I didn't even know. Like, they didn't want to be killed. They didn't want to be, put into the war. They didn't want any parts of it. So they fled to Texas. So there was like an influx of like slaves and like slave owners who wanted to keep their slaves, wanted to not be a part of it. So they fled to Texas. And that was like, a huge group of people. And yeah, they didn't have like telephones and broadcastings across the world and news stations in order to tell people. So they had to, send word like, hey, now it taking them 2 years to do that. I mean, I don't know. I guess like we can send a message to someone across the world in literally 1 second. So I don't know what it's like to have to spread the news for years. So that could have played a factor in why they were still enslaved. Very well could be the case. Who actually knows? It's very much, speculation at that point. But I just think that it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy to think about the history of this country and how things went about. Reading the Declaration of Independence and all these proclamations and different things that are very crazy. I saw something where the South had representatives, and you have the states that sign things into law, and it has nothing to do with the federal government. I think people, kind of forget that the federal government and your state government are two completely different things. And it is true. The federal government cannot tell a state what to do. They should not be able to. And you have some presidents who kind of get a little too over the top and do it anyway. And we'll get into on a different episode presidents that have broke that barrier. And to people's surprises, Trump has not broke that barrier. But you could hear from someone like, yeah, it's like, okay, whatever. But the southern states signed into law that if a slave escapes and is caught, doesn't matter where they are, the federal government is to return them back to the owner. And if anyone helped them, they are to be penalized, jailed, whatever their consequence is. And that is supposed to be enforced by the federal government. And the North was like, oh, absolutely not. The federal government is not going to be involved in your sadistic ways. And so that's another thing that led up to the Civil War. But I thought that was very interesting. That's something that I didn't know about. Like, I knew that there were like bounties, like you could get in trouble if you did it, but I didn't know that they signed it into law and like made it so that the federal government had to enforce those laws. And I just think that it's very crazy because they didn't want the federal government to tell them what to do. But the Democrats, the slavery owning Democrats wanted the federal government to catch their slaves and penalize anyone who helped them. Very sick. very, very sick. So then to, learn all of these, different facts, these different things, it's very enlightening. It's very eye-opening to the world that we live in today. And I find it all very interesting. I find it all very, very interesting. Now, on the next upcoming episode of It's Okay, we're going to go all the way back to 1776 and before, right? So we're going to discuss in that episode a little bit more about slavery and what that looks like, how it started, the Atlantic slave trade that ended, that happened from Africa, and where all the slaves ended up going and different things like that, and the progression from 1619, I guess, to 1776, and then we'll make our way back to 1865, the final freeing of the last slaves. Very, very amazing. All of the things that this country has gone through, and we love it. We love it. We absolutely love it. But this is the end of It's Okay, the podcast history lesson. It's not necessarily a history lesson. It's just me kind of researching different things and like wanting to talk about it on my podcast. That's really it. It's my podcast. I talk about what I want to talk about. And this is just bonus episodes. I'm not really going to, like I said, headline these. These are just like fun things for me to turn into like a creative thing. I don't know. I really like it. But happy belated Juneteenth. I only got a happy Juneteenth from 2 people, my dad being one of them and like some random person. It wasn't really largely celebrated by my family or by the community that I'm in or anything like that. It's just kind of like, an online presence. I know that they celebrated down in Texas, and I wish I could have been there for it. It looked so much fun. It looked so lit. But regardless, I think that it is absolutely amazing. And I don't know, I don't think it can be necessarily told without the July 4th component and different things like that. I saw someone speaking about Juneteenth at the White House with Joe Biden whenever he signed it into law, when she said that she would like for it to be a celebration from like June 19th all the way to July 4th. That would be a lot of partying, but like I'm on board for that, because it's like, you can't have one without the other, and you can't have the other without one. Makes sense to me. I don't know. But yeah, just the history of this country itself is really, really interesting. It's really awesome, and I love to be a part of it. I've kind of, been wanting to do episodes like this for quite some time. My dad actually kind of gave me a little bit of the idea behind our last name. So you guys know I'm Amber Hitchcock, host of the It's Okay podcast, but my last name is Hitchcock, and my last name is European. So I, when it's time to officially receive our reparations, I possibly am someone who will receive them, because just off of technicality, I mean, I'm Black, but I have a European last name. So somewhere on down the line, I, of course, was a descendant from a slave of some way, because, Hitchcock was given to slaves. So from what I gather, I think. Also, I'm learning that even though slaves came here, were traded here, there were still Blacks that came here, willingly migrated here, and they just didn't come to the South. They went to the North. So we're going to do a whole bonus episode on a whole host of amazing Africans that migrated here and just went to the North and like had really great things for themselves. So definitely stay tuned for the second part of It's Okay, the podcast. Cute little fun history lesson / thing. I don't know. But you guys enjoy the rest of the week. Take it easy. I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you're looking forward to the second episode of this. And always remember, no matter what, no matter who you are, no matter your race, your sexuality, your skin tone, your life, your hardships, anything is possible. God is on your side. I'm on your side. And remember, it's okay.
All of us have problems.